Hello, everybody, and welcome to the UFOB Experiencer series. I am here with great gratitude, and I'm very excited to announce this series that we've really been developing for really the last few months now. And like I said, I am very ecstatic to finally put out this intro episode. So let me just introduce myself briefly here. My name is Adam. I've been into ufology my whole life. I guess you could say I was fathered into it, no pun intended. My father was a huge, I guess you could say, buff on ufology and UFOs, and really grew up during the era where this was all starting to come out in the open subtly. We all know about that issue. And just a bit more here, my educational background is in psychology. So I have just a undergraduate in general psychology as well as a master's in research psychology. So pretty much methodology, statistics, literature, interpreting literature, things of that nature. My master's thesis is on complementary and alternative medicine and emerging adults. I have done EEG work in the neuroscience department, where I was the primary assistant in a nasal versus oral respiration study with the exploratory dimension of mindfulness. And I also conducted a very interesting literature review on belief and attitudes towards paranormal experiences. And I'm not a huge advocate for the word paranormal because it's a very loaded word. So one of the biggest factors I found that predicts belief and attitudes towards the paranormal is actually experience. The experience guides and molds an individual's attitudes and belief towards these Fortean phenomena. With that being said, I identify as an experiencer myself. My first huge experience that quite literally changed my life forever was back in 2006. It was October 20th in 2006, and like I said, it changed my life forever. There was no going back after that experience, and I was very fortunate to experience it with a very close friend. Both of us have memory loss and time loss from the event. And not long after that occurred, I made almost like a life quest. And the quest consisted of figuring out what I experienced on that night, as well as figuring out the big picture of what's happening on this planet. What is actually true and what is actually false. And at this point in time, I am not afraid to say I am full woo. And if you really follow and look into the nicks and crannies of ufology, historically speaking, and not just in the last 70 or 80 years, historically all the way back through all of our species history, it's not too hard to start saying, hey, maybe things are a little bit more woo than what we know. In 2017, I also experienced some abnormal consciousness phenomena. And during that window, I guess you could say I really started diving more into ufology, diving into my own timeline and piecing all these little puzzle pieces together and figuring out I've been roped up in this phenomena for a long, long time, essentially my whole life. And it is extremely complex. It is more complex than I even understand at this point. And with that, I guess you could say awakening in 2017, more so just an awakening of who I actually am. I have experienced some contact with extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, non-human intelligence, whatever you want to call them. And that was, I can't even say any words about it. There are no words. It's only feelings. It is, I can barely even formulate a sentence based on the awe of that type of experience. With all this being said, UFOB is more inclined to advocate for the non-human intelligence hypothesis, the NHI. We don't directly know if these beings are extraterrestrial. We don't directly know if these beings are even physical. The phenomena is more complex than any of us can even imagine. And it has been happening through the history of our species. Humans were talking about this, writing about this, sharing these stories thousands of years ago. And we are still talking about this, writing about this, sharing these stories right now. Now, this platform, this Experiencer series, is an invitation to anyone who has an experience and is willing to share. Is willing to share what happened to them. And this platform is as safe as a place as we can make it, so you do not feel threatened, you do not feel discriminated on, you don't feel those taboos as you normally would on other platforms or even on just anonymously online. I know what it's like. It took me almost a lifetime to start coming forward and showing my face and talking about these experiences out in the open like this. It took me time to do that, and it's still not necessarily easy sometimes. But I've gotten a lot better. And additionally, as I mentioned before, this platform really is just going to be a safe place for experiencers to describe their experiences. As well as hopefully, with enough people and enough effort, we can start correlating some of these experiences and correlating some of this phenomenon that has been occurring for a very long time through a lot of individuals here in this culture and on this planet Earth. And finally, this series hopes to inspire some therapeutic relief, because I know firsthand how difficult it can be. I know how difficult it can be to convey these stories. I've been called a liar. I've been called crazy. I've been called literally insane before, but I don't care. I'm here to tell the truth, and I will tell the truth. And I'm here to tell what I believe and what I've come to find. And I hope this invitation reaches those who are willing to showcase similar attitudes. Thank you, and welcome to the Experiencer series.
Hello, everyone. I'm Leif, one of the UFOB mods. UFOB was founded by Remzi, who brings you some great content every day to prove that there is a non-human intelligence that's visiting the planet, maybe living on the planet, in the planet, around the planet, who knows, except probably our military. So please be sure to visit the UFOB subreddit. As for my background, I jumped into ufology about 5 years ago and quickly realized that the subject is so deep that I would never be able to be a researcher per se, but more of an enthusiast. There are so many paths to go down in ufology, and the path I originally chose was the secret space program. When I was young, I was very much into the paranormal. I wrote a poltergeist essay when I was in 5th grade, and a few years later when Poltergeist came out, I was just blown away. I was so excited. Moving on a little bit, when I was around 15, I went and visited my dad, and his ex-girlfriend handed me this Robert Monroe book, and so I read the Journeys book, and it just blew my mind. I had no idea that there's a possibility that we could astrally travel or travel out of our bodies. Then a few years later, I found remote viewing, and I found that by way of being very curious about quantum physics. So I typed in the Netscape search engine and typed quantum physics, and what I found was military use of quantum physics. What's that? So I clicked on it, and it was remote viewing. So then I became familiar with Russell Targ, Hal Puthoff, Ingo Swann, Uri Geller, and the rest of the gang that worked at the Stanford Research Institute. And around that time was also when I saw my first sighting of clusters of orbs in the sky. It was daylight in a parking lot at a bowling alley with my friend and plenty of other people as well that were all looking up at the sky to see this cluster of orbs, which I actually videotaped with my friend's camera, but he burnt over the tape because he was a real skeptic or just believed that it wasn't anything. It was something that I'd never seen before, but that is no longer available to look at. So let's move on. So around this time, I was curious about quantum physics. I learned about remote viewing. I was already into the paranormal. I learned about Robert Monroe years earlier. And the next thing I find was David Bohm, and David Bohm's stuff just blew my mind as well. I can't explain to you his ideas. They're very deep, and I'm not a physicist, but I would definitely say go check out David Boehm's work. Soon after that, I had a second sighting. I was with that same friend that I saw the first sighting, and we were on the beach having some beer, and it was nighttime. I remember we were walking, and this was an ocean beach in San Francisco, and I started spinning because I was looking at the stars. It was a semi-clear night. It was slightly misty, kind of that misty San Francisco sky. And I looked up and saw a large disc. I can say that it was probably about 800 feet above us. I'm saying that only because I know that the towers of the Golden Gate Bridge are about 800 feet tall from sea level to the top. And so I estimate it was about 800 feet above us. And it just glided quietly past us and towards Golden Gate Park. While I was spinning, I stopped. I said, "Oh my gosh, are you hallucinating what I'm hallucinating?" And he said, "Yeah, I think I am." And we watched the thing move over Golden Gate Park. But again, he was kind of a skeptic, so we just kind of didn't talk about it after that. But it's not that it spurred any more curiosity for me, because again, he was a skeptic. He was also my roommate, so we didn't talk too much about that anyway. I was already talking about remote viewing and crazy stuff at the time. So again, let it go and just continued on with life. And then fast forward to around 2017, at work, a friend had mentioned people living in the earth in large caves. They had a civilization there. So I was curious, and so I looked into that, and turned out I found, that's when I found Kevin Wilcock and Corey Good. Looked at a little bit of their stuff, and that also brought the Law of One information in there. I thought that was very interesting as well. But what it really led to was the secret space program. So that's when I dove into that. The secret space program was really interesting. It was also military. I felt like it was something that would keep me grounded and stabilized. But you find out pretty quick that in ufology, you mention any of this type of stuff and people think you're crazy. And of course, everyone knows that the military did have an operation to make sure that everyone was thought of as crazy when they mentioned anything about UFOs. But of course, that brought me to Greer's site, so I watched all of his testimonials. You'll find that ufology is just a big gray box of what ifs. I get that from Hal Puthoff. I believe at a conference, Hal said that he has a gray box that he puts things in. I believe Stan Friedman may have said that as well. Either way, I know Hal said it. And I've been kind of using that. This ufology is just a big gray box of what ifs, and everything you hear, you just have to put it in your gray box and organize it and say, okay, that might be true. Right now, I'm not an experiencer. I don't experience any UFOs every day or aliens or ETs. I hear that they don't like being called aliens, so I'll say ETs. Then I kind of went down the road of abductions, because again, there are many paths you can follow in ufology, and I was finally coming to the abduction path, because first you have sightings, and then you have contact, and then you have abductions. Nonetheless, Bud Hopkins and John Mack made abductions more real for the academic world. That there's really something out there. Something is going on. There's a phenomenon. It's global, just as the UFO phenomenon is global, and that it needs to be looked at. And many people, thousands and thousands of people have been abducted, and they have stories, and the stories are all different, yet there are many commonalities in all the stories. Abductions hold clues to what might be going on with the non-human intelligence around our planet. Abduction stories hold clues and add pieces of the puzzle to help us kind of get an idea of what could be going on. And unfortunately, when you throw the pieces of the puzzle down on the board, there's still so many that don't even look like they fit at all. You just have to throw your arms up in the air and hope that someday they'll all come together. The stories experiencers tell are fascinating. I hope you enjoy hearing these stories as much as I do. Again, it's hard to walk the road of eggshells, that you have to figure out whether some of these experiencers are lying, are they telling the truth? But most experiencers want to be kept anonymous. They just want to tell their stories. When they tell their stories, it's a very cathartic moment for them. It's a psychological release for them to be able to tell their stories to someone and get it off their chest. And we're happy to lend an ear to many of these experiencers who do come to us and tell us their stories. The stories of these experiencers are just fascinating, and I hope you enjoy them as much as we do. They will create more questions than answers, that's for sure, and we hope that you comment and let us know any of the questions you have, and even join our Discord so you can ask the questions directly to these experiencers yourself. Please join us on UFOB Reddit. Be sure to join us on our Discord, and be sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more of this fascinating content.